Now, we all know that 2013 isn't exactly over yet, Cover Killer Nation. After all, we do have a couple of lists that we still need to attend to, especially the Album of the Year list, which will be coming here probably in a couple of days, not to mention the top 10 pop/rock albums, or actually 15. Man, forgetting all the things I'm going to do with all this stuff. But I figured it'd be kind of cool on a day like today where there really isn't that much to do, not really all that much to talk about, to start planning for the future a little bit and start looking into 2014 and some of the things that at least near the beginning part of the year that we can really be excited about, not only as a nation but also as fans of heavy metal music. Now, I got to admit that for this I'm going to be definitely referring to a place to kind of help me along a little bit, but that's simply because trying to remember all of that stuff is kind of difficult. And while my memorization skills certainly are still kind of there from whenever I was in high school, college, and had to remember all sorts of trivial and meaningless information that really didn't apply to me all that much, it's definitely one where as age has kind of crept up with me, the skills have certainly declined a little bit. So do forgive it if it appears that I'm reading a little bit, but let's talk about this. Let's talk immediately whenever we get right into January, whenever we get right to it. And right there, right whenever we are going to be talking about the State of the Music Address 2014, which happens every single year right after the new year. We already have a couple of great albums to talk about. We have the new Legion of the Damned album coming out on the 3rd of January. These are all tentative dates. And then we have a huge one with the new Iced Earth album, Plagues of Babylon. Now, these are two bands that certainly are going to hopefully get the year started in a very, very good way. And they are going to be two pretty big name releases, at least for the potential and for the top 20, 30, 50, whatever list it's going to be next year. And not to mention, these are ways that we can perhaps tell if 2014 is going to be, any good or any bad or whatever it's going to be. So, that's a pretty good and pretty awesome start. We have a Suicidal Angels album coming out entitled Divide and Conquer on the 14th of January. And then, of course, the new Alcet comes out on the 17th entitled Shelter. Now, I know that there's been a little bit of kind of talk about the new single that's come out. I haven't reviewed it, I haven't touched it or anything like that, but I'm always excited to hear a new album from this group simply because it's just they're just something that has always, I've been very curious about them, about how their career is going to manifest itself. We've basically tracked them ever since the band first started, and it's something that we will continue to track, hopefully, all throughout their career here on this channel. So that's something that's going to be interesting. There's a couple compilations coming out from some bands that we know. Drudka's one with the Eastern Frontier and Flames. I know some people want me to touch base with some compilation discs, but this might be the year for it. You never know. We also have a Demlik compilation coming out. There's they're definitely a very interesting group. I have one of their albums somewhere in this massive mess that I call a collection, but the compilation is called 20th Adversary of Emptiness. And as we move along further, we have albums from Storm Warrior with Thunder and Steel. Caliban has a new one called Ghost Empire. I know some people have been clamoring for me to talk about some Caliban. Campfire is one that people have asked me to do. And the big one, though, for me at the end of January is going to be Kaleidoscope by Transatlantic, not to mention Clear by Periphery. If you remember, the Periphery album review from a couple of years back was one where I made some bold predictions that didn't actually come true. You're not hearing Periphery on the radio. It's definitely not something where they've crossed over that way, but this is a group that has a lot of potential, and I want to see where Clear takes them, because if you remember, this year, Tesseract certainly proved that you can easily go from being a band that had a great EP and then had a debut that kind of was to creating an album that's just a monster, a beast, and definitely a contender in the top whatever album of the year race for the calendar year here in 2013. So it's going to be interesting to see what Periphery does at the very onset of 2014. We also have a Within Temptation release, Hydra, and Grand Magus, who I reviewed their last album with Triumph and Power, coming out on the 31st of January. Remember, these are all tentative. And a cool thing for me, at least, is a Lake of Tears DVD. I've always kind of dug Lake of Tears. I've listened to them for quite a while, probably for about a decade. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Now, a couple that don't have a date in mind is Blacklight Discipline, Death by a Thousand Cuts, Ancestral with Web of Lies, and Nocturnal Breed with Napalm Nights. These are a couple of lesser-known titles that I may opt to touch, I may not, but I find it interesting to see some of these titles on lists and kind of think to myself, is this something that you guys would dig? Is it something that I would enjoy reviewing? Do you guys know these guys? You know, that's why I read as many comments and messages as I can. If it feels like I never get to yours, I apologize. There's just so many that come in on a daily basis. That makes me sound really, really vain, like I have all these messages. You are not important. You guys are all important to me. It's just that I can't always get to everything, considering I have a lot going on outside of the channel as well to try to keep the channel going, and hopefully there's going to be more of that as the year progresses on, so stay tuned for that. Whenever we get into February, I couldn't even remember my months for a minute there. It's kind of just a testament of how much is going on. We have Behemoth right there to start, the Satanist, right there out of the gate. And that's going to be a huge release for early on in the year that I'm really excited about. I want to hear what Behemoth is able to do. It's been a while, and, you know, it's been a long time coming. I'm really, really hoping that this is something special. We also have a Sun and Ulver collaboration album coming out entitled Terrestrials, and if you remember how high I was on the Sun and Boris compilation back from the old Blog TV days, I used to play the Sinking Bell probably at least once every show or every 2 shows, then you know that I definitely dig whenever Sun does compilations, and I love Ulver. I didn't get a chance to review their last album, so this is one that is certainly circled on my calendar. I cannot wait. Also, Stamina is one that's coming out. I reviewed their first release, and I want to see how their career progresses. And then we get the Van Den Plas. Van Den Plas is a terrific progressive band. Chronicles of the Immortals Part 1, Netherworld comes out on, this is kind of funny, on Valentine's Day. On Valentine's Day here in 2014. I definitely want to check that out. As well as the new Cynic record entitled Kindly Bent to Free Us, which comes out the same day. So that's going to be a big week. I can't wait to talk about those 2 albums. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, here's something that you might find to be a little bit strange. I do want to check out and review the new Adrenaline Mob album, Men of Honor. Is it because Portnoy's not on it? No, not really. I just, you know, whenever you've reviewed their first release, and it's the first album that they've done, you know, they've done the covers album, Coverta, ever since then. I'm talking, of course, of Omerta from 2012. You kind of want to continue onward and give the band another shot, give them another chance, because there were some things on Omerta that they were doing right. It's just that the execution was a little flawed. It wasn't that great and very well done. They did a great cover on that album, so, you know, let's see what happens. And I really want to talk about that one based around that alone. Now, whenever we get into March, we have a couple more that are just kind of, you know, no dates are set in stone. Of course, Winter Sun's Time 2 is one that we are all very, very, very excited for. And, of course, it was supposed to come out this year, and it didn't happen. Hopefully, this is not the start of another 7-year wait. And it's not going to be. I really don't think it's going to be. I think we're going to see this sooner than later, hopefully in March, like it's been slated. But there's also a potential Pain of Salvation record entitled Falling Home. Always, always, always interested to see what Pain of Salvation does. And Brainstorm's another one with Fire Soul. Brainstorm, I think, is a really underappreciated band that just really has some kick-ass material out there, and certainly is a band that I would certainly check out if I were you. And while we're talking about recommendations, this isn't one that's on the list, but this is one that you can find on Bandcamp, Alters. They are an Australian death metal band. I just recently listened to their debut from this year. It's been a number of months. I may still benefit it with a review. However, this was a pretty strong death metal album, a very, very good debut, and I want to give those guys a shout out, even though they may never, ever watch this video. Then, you know, as we get to March, things start to get a little bit thin. You know, we have a Savage Messiah album. You guys wanted me to talk about their last one. I never got around to it. Magnum. I talked about the last Magnum album, and that was actually a bigger success than I thought. Escape from the Shadow Garden. I want to talk about these guys again. These guys are long-lasting veterans. And then there's a Crystal Tears album that ends the month. Like I said, now we're getting a little bit more thin, and a lot of these are just. This is when they've been tentatively slated to be released. In April, we have a new Marty Friedman entitled Inferno. Devin Townsend's Casualties of Cool has kind of been pushed back here and there and worked on here and there. A new Gorgoroth album, that should be interesting. New Psy album and a Vader album, potentially in the same month. That could be pretty dangerous. Vader with Tibi et Igni, and Psy with Graveward. But the big ones for, or should I say, the big one for April so far is Triptychon. Triptychon's Metana Chiasma. Or Chasmata. I am just ruining things left and right. I can't read. And that's going to be huge because, as you remember, their very first album placed very high on the list for Album of the Year for that year and was just magnificent. You know, I saw them live the same year. It was just a fantastic release. And, of course, Tom Gabriel Warrior Fisher is just the fucking man. Come on now. Now, this is about where this video is going to have to stop, simply because, aside from that, we don't have very much that has been tentatively sliced and told to us that they are going to be released this year. However, there have been many different reports for other bands. The one that I'm, of course, the most excited for is a potential for a new Opeth album. And I'm excited about this because Heritage left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and that's kind of unfortunate considering it's silently becoming an album that I really respect, even though it's not going to be one where I'm going to be calling, you know, tracks from here and there. It's just kind of good as an overall release. This isn't one where you're going to get, you know, choice songs and just dig those. It's one where you kind of enjoy it as a whole. But I want to see what they're able to do as a follow-up, simply because Heritage was kind of a really bold risk for a band like Opeth at this stage in their career, and I think that they handled it with a lot of grace. So I want to see what they're able to do after that. Of course, we know we could hear some new stuff from Steven Wilson. Steve just released a new a DVD, a live one, so that's going to be really cool. And what else is going to come out this year? What else do you guys know about that's going to come out this year? I mean, obviously, a lot of you guys are in bands. Maybe you guys have releases set for this year. I want a new Sanhedrin album. I know that it's probably not going to happen, and it's really a shame because those guys are just amazing. Really good band from the UK. But, yeah, what are some things that are coming out in 2014 that you know about that I maybe didn't mention that you are really excited about? Talk to me about them in the comments. Maybe make a video and link me to it, and I can link the nation to it. Either that, or just send me a couple of requests of things that you would want to see me review in 2014, whether it be metal or non-metal. Because, of course, as you know, I'm talking about it all, baby. I'm just talking metal right now because we're about to talk about the top 35 list for Album of the Year 2013. I promise you that's the next video, folks, unless something else happens. But for now, good fight and good night.